Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, let's get the program started in earnest. On Wednesday, the federal government suspended its plan to reopen schools for graduating students, which it had announced earlier in the week, and also stopped students from writing the WAEC, well, West African Senior School Certificate Examinations, better known as WAEC, which was earlier scheduled for August 4th to September 5th. The federal government stated that it would prefer an academic year to be lost than to expose students to the coronavirus pandemic. So let's look at this together this morning. We have joining us via Skype Titus Ibekwe, Professor of Otorhinolaryngology. Oh, that word again. Did I get it right?
You got it. You got it.
Good morning, Professor. We also have Dr. Adefeso Olateju, the education part of the Education Partnership Center, also joining us via Skype. Good morning. Okay. And with us live in the studio is Professor Abiola Awoshika, President and CEO of Oasis. Good morning, Prof. In parentheses, what does Oasis stand for?
Oh, it's Olawonya Awoshika, School of Innovative Studies.
School of Innovative
It's in
Studies.
memory of my father.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank
Now, let me begin with Dr. Adefeso Olateju. Can you hear us, by the way? Because we didn't hear you when we came to you just now. Are you? Can you hear us?
No, we still can't hear him.
Well, we can't. Can you say something to us, please? Good morning.
Okay. I think they're still working on that.
Okay, let me start with the person we have in the studio with us live, Professor Awoshika. In the course of the, well, at the beginning of the week, the task force announced, or last week actually, that school leaving classes were going to resume to be able to take their exams. And then this week, it reversed itself and said that it was not time to open any schools or sit any exams. What's your take on that in light of our circumstance right now?
Well, I think we have to think of the safety of the children first. It's one thing to say the Minister of Education went back on his words, but when you look at the logistics, a lot of these schools are boarding schools. So where do you keep your children at that time? Where, I mean, how do you know they're going to be taken care of? I've seen several surveys now, even in the last 2 days that this decision was made. And a lot of the parents don't want their kids to be in school at this time because of the uncertainty. We really don't know what this coronavirus is doing. First, it wasn't airborne. Now it's airborne, you know, and we really, and because Nigeria is not testing that much, and because of the behavior of children, because you're not going to be able to restrain them not to play, not to touch each other, even at that age. At the primary, so they have
first school leaving,
first school leaving, and then secondary, and it's just it's unsettling.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of people would say, yes, let's just wait a while.
Dr. Adefeso Olateju, are you with us now? On social media, some parents were kicking that they wanted their children to go and do these exams. They didn't want their children to waste any time, so to speak. But somebody else was quick to respond that when they finish this exam, they're supposed to go somewhere and that somewhere is not even open. So what's the hurry?
Latejo, I don't know if you can unmute yourself because we can't hear you. She's coming to us via Zoom. Dr. Adefeso Latejo, can you hear us? Okay, she can't hear us, so let's get to Prof. Ibekwe.
Okay, Prof.
No, Professor
Ibekwe. Prof, can you weigh in on that, please? You know, the parents who are complaining that they want their students to go back to school, they don't want them to lose any time, maybe up to a year. But government is saying better to have children alive than to have them do exams and know where to go and probably dead from the coronavirus.
Yes, you know, it's always good when analyzing issues to take it from a balanced perspective. There are some pros and there are some cons when you look at the issue of outright cancellation of these exams or just opening our floodgates and saying that our children should get back to school. We must get it right because COVID-19, as we know, by every intent and purpose, it is a disease that you have to protect life and you also protect livelihood. That's how you do it, and you have to strike a balance. And that needs a lot of hard work. Our children have to be alive first, but again, their future is equally very important to each and every one of us. And I think that's why the federal government, at the time, the Ministry of Education, took time to come up with some measures that if these measures obeyed strictly down to letters, then we may be able to take in our children to write exams. But very importantly is to know that the incidence in COVID-19 is on the rise on a daily basis. Now, on average, we're almost getting to 700 on average per day. And as I said, if we continue in this trajectory, we may get to 1,000 per day, despite the fact that we're not testing full capacity yet, and we're having this. So that speaks volume that the community transmission is real. And unfortunately, as we can see, it appears we're not obeying the rules and regulations strictly. But if you look on the other side of this discussion, I think we can make some good modifications and these children could write their exams, okay? If we have to phase this, and by phasing, I mean only the final years, the senior students, that's SS3, could be accommodated if rules and regulations have to be obeyed strictly in our various institutions. Let's not forget that we're talking of WAEC here, and the other Anglophone countries, the other 4 Anglophone countries, are gearing up to go ahead and write the exams. Ghana already admitting their own final year students. So we may take a swipe at dropping the idea of primary school or even JSS3 coming in and focusing on SS3 alone. That means that for a facility that used to accommodate or take care of certain number of students, you are using that to handle just 1/6 of these students. And bearing in mind that the final year students, SS3 students, are adolescents transforming to adults. It will be easier for them to be able to obey instructions. You know, okay. When you compare to
Professor Ibekwe, I would have to interrupt you briefly. We need to go on a very quick break. We'll come back and you can pick it up from that point where you left off. Please join us. Thank you for staying with us. Professor Ibekwe, you were saying something about what needs to be done. Okay, well, Professor Adefeso Olateju, I understand we have you now. The question Alera asked you earlier, why do you think there appears to be this pressure to open up the schools?
Great, thank you very much. It's good to be on the program this morning. I hope you can hear me now. There is a pressure for schools to reopen simply because parents and families understand that there is a formal pathway through which their children will attain academic success. The reality is that the COVID pandemic has brought into sharp focus this dichotomy in our society between schooling and learning. And it would appear from my own reading of the situation globally as it unfolds that the COVID-afflicted and post-COVID world would benefit more from people who are at this time developing critical skills, who are learning critical skills that are both academic and social and emotional, and not just academic. And so I think that the discussion is really between schooling and learning. And unfortunately, it shouldn't be so. And so parents know that for their children to progress, for example, to university entrance examinations, they do need to have, for example, a WAEC certificate. But the question is, do we need to continue to think about our examinations and assessments the way that we have always done? And the reason I say this is because I think of curriculum and assessment as being two sides of the same coin. And so when we want to assess learning, the question is, have children learned? What have they learned? And that really should drive the assessment. You also have some instances where assessments can drive the curriculum. And when you find out what children are learning, you use that to structure what they should be learning in the future. Do we have that synergy between our assessments and our curriculum? And that, for me, is really at the heart of why this issue is important. We want children to obviously progress in their academics, but at the same time, we want them to stay safe. So no easy answers. And I believe that when you're planning as an education sector, you cannot have all your variables shifting and moving at the same time. There must be one static variable around which we build and plan. And for me, that variable is learning. And so if at this time we decide to shift our attention to what sort of knowledge and skills and competencies do we want our children to possess for them to live healthy, happy lives, productive lives in our society, and globally competitive lives, then let that be our focus and let us begin to build structures, curriculum structures, assessment structures, technology structures around that critical mandate.
You are of the education partnership. Do you think a lot will be lost if the students in examination years don't proceed with their examinations? Because strictly speaking, even when they have passed those exams, there's nowhere they're going because those occupying those places they want to go to have not been able to finish their curriculums and graduated.
The reality is that these key stage examinations that we're referring to, and specifically WAEC, yes, certainly are a gateway, to higher education. But we would also remember that for children to get to the point where they are ready to write an examination, a lot has happened over the last 1 year. They have spent and invested a lot of their time in studying, in reflecting, in preparing for these examinations. And so you can understand why children and their families would be disappointed that they don't have the opportunity to prepare to write an examination which they have prepared for. We can appreciate that. Whether the schools that are to receive them are open is another matter and another conversation that we still need to have. For me, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Are we prioritizing learning? Are we even reflecting on what is happening globally and internationally? The courses that WIEC, for example, assess, the competencies that WIEC assesses, do these remain the competencies in their entirety that are relevant for the kind of world that we live in? I think we have to start, whilst we ask the tactical questions, I think we really do need to shift our minds also to the more strategic issues so that we don't spend all of our time addressing the short-term concerns and then find at the end of the day that we're still moving in the same little challenging circle. So this is my perspective.
Zawoshika, the short-term concerns, she's put out something, says the difference between learning and schooling, so to speak. It's like that's a major concern because there are those who are thinking, these children have been going to school, but have they really learned anything? Is it about the exams they're writing? Why do we continue to think exams are the best way to test the learning capability of our children? You think she's right in that?
She's absolutely right. The school curriculum has been, bastardized in the sense that we pick items to teach the children because we know the system that WIEC uses to test them. You have to have, in mathematics, there's a question on graphs, there's a question on, algebra. So they already permutated all of those things. And so they just teach to those topics. So the students have carried those things on their heads, and they're ready to dump it, regurgitate it in the exams. So we're worried. If the students were learning while in school, it shouldn't matter because it's the concept that you're trying to teach them. You can manipulate it any way you want, and they will get it. So we're not. We're encouraging teaching to the exam, teaching to the test, instead of actually finding out if students were learning the concepts we're teaching them. And we can examine them in several ways. It's not just sitting down and writing an exam. If I gave you an open book examination that allows you to use your books, you can research whatever topic. I give you a time limit, and I set the question such that it's not just define this and list this and whatever what have you. You would find out that more students will demonstrate learning instead of what they have learned in school to pass examinations. So we need to rethink how we do school. We need to rethink what we let our students get out of the material that we're teaching them. We cannot afford the empty exam because I'm going to the university, university because I'm going to go out and get a job, which you can't get because you didn't learn the material in the first place. We have to actually rethink our curriculum and give these students the skills, 21st century skills that they need to survive. Critical thinking, communication, logical thinking, all of these are not examined.
Okay. Professor Ibekwe, yes, so right now the federal government has reversed itself. That fear that students are going to lose like one academic year. Do you think there's a way it can be taken advantage of to rework the curriculum so that we have more learning for practice or learning for living instead of learning for examination? Okay, let me ask that question again. Do you think this period that the schools are shut down and no exams whatsoever can be utilized to work on the curriculum so students begin to learn for life, learn for practice instead of learn for examination?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. Sorry, there has been some connection and reconnection issue. But the thing here is, as rightly said, my colleagues over there, I completely agree with their line of thought. But again, I believe in holistic problem solving. We can't solve a problem by evading part of it. We take it frontally. All it takes is for us to be able to get our acts right. These final years alone, as I was suggesting before you went on break, if we accommodate them, they should be able to write their exams. And we can go ahead and modify the format for writing exams and other things subsequently. But for now, it is too close, it is too short. Let's not forget that these children have just finished writing their JAMB before now, and they are technically ready to take subsequent exams. And what does it take? I am talking from the perspective of a health personnel and also a teacher. You know, all it takes is for us to abide by these simple rules, which has been laid out. We utilize the space that is meant for a certain number of people for 1/6 of that number of students, and obey these critical rules. We should be able to do their exams. And we may have to limit the contact time. Instead of telling them to come and spend 1 month in school before exams, it may be 2 weeks. These students have been reading in anticipation, getting ready for exams, you know, so they should be able to do this exam. Coming back to our various schools, the teachers, the authorities, and we, the parents, will all have collective responsibilities to carry out here. Number one, before the children get back to school, we should be able to brand face masks that the names must be inscribed on, giving to them sets, 3 or 4 of that, so that, you know, children must be children at all times, so that don't misplay these things and interchange the face masks. You get them to school, you get the ground preparatory ready for them. Spacious enough because we have fewer numbers coming in. We space them for those who are meant to stay in the hostels, because definitely some of them will travel hundreds of kilometers to be able to get back to their schools. So for those who will stay in these boarding facilities, you spread them out to the entire boarding facilities in the school, and you will be able to achieve this desired physical distancing. Now, strategically, you place cleansing things within the schools. All the hostels, all the refectories, all the classrooms will all have this ready. Every morning, designated people, their teachers will have to check their temperature and the standardized things that they have to check, and ensure and monitor them very closely that this spacing is maintained within this period. You stagger them across all the classrooms in the school. All the teachers should be involved in the revision, which is very desirable before the exams are written. So you do this, you achieve this distancing, it is easier to regulate. Then on the part of the schools, they ensure that strictly no visitors come in. Anybody that must come in must have a very serious business that is bringing him or her into the school. And the same, even their teachers has to be checked and monitored for their vitals, including their temperature and all those. They also involve in the respiratory hygiene, hand hygiene, and others, okay? In the classroom, we maintain all this. We can consistently do this for 2 weeks. Monitor our children, they write the exams. As I said, beautifully enough, it will concentrate only on SS3, which for me is the most critical as it is, since the other West African countries are going ahead with their exams, all right? So they cannot be left alone. They are old enough, so parents should be able to educate their children properly before they set out for those going to the boarding facility. For those that are taken to the schools to do this, it has to be done very, very carefully, and we can achieve that. In school, there has to be a holding area, which has to be mapped out. So these hold areas are places in case you have any child that manifests any symptom that is suggestive. Of course, having gone to the bay, you just place as the hold area. And there has to be regular contacts with NCDC or indeed any hospital within some kilometers within and around the institution. There have to be a good contact with them. Once you have any child manifesting that have such suspicious symptoms, is placed in this holding area. And of course, some of their teachers, especially those teaching health education and all those, must have been well trained within this period. You know, you do the contact.
Professor, this sounds like a logistics nightmare to me, just you talking about it. Because we know what these boarding houses are like. Double-decker beds, lying cheek by jowl. How do you sort all that out and have these students in so that they are safe? Or is it that during the period of the exams, the schools will decide that all those coming for the exams should come in as day students? All these things have to, you're talking about sanitizers and face masks in the schools. All these, the schools have to get ready. Are they prepared for all this so that these exams can go ahead as you're suggesting?
Alero, it is not possible for all the students to come as day to write their exams. You know what? Because some of them are living hundreds of kilometers away. For instance, you have a child staying in Lagos that is schooling in Abuja. The child has to come back. All right? For those staying in the boarding school, all we got to do is to concentrate on them. Those of them that are staying with their parents within and around where the schools are, will have to stay with their parents. As I said, let's not forget that we'll be dealing with 1/6 of the capacity that normally these boarding schools carry. So it is very flexible and easy to be able to handle, to maintain the spacing. That is the nightmare that we're thinking of here. All right? When you stagger them across all the entire boarding facilities within the school, for the few that cannot come from their homes, those that travel long distances to come into school, we're able to send them and utilize all their teachers in the monitoring, in ensuring that these strict rules and regulations are maintained. It takes two to tango.
Okay, Professor Bekwe, I'll have to read this and then direct the question to Professor Woshika. A parent is watching. Sam says, I'm a father with a child in examination class, in one of the examination classes. My child will not be going back to school soon until this pandemic is over. The risk is just too much. Professor Woshika, Professor Bekwe has talked about the need to train. He talked about training the teachers, especially those that are teaching health education and physical education, and then managing the students. There will be room. Mr. Festus Akimbewa says there will be rooms for social distancing in these schools if only the examination classes come. But you don't look like you agree with this.
Well, it's scary. We've been talking about the students. We haven't talked about the teachers. With underlying conditions, any exposure will get them in deep trouble. A lot of these teachers have not been paid in the last how many months. It's just not right. You have to provide sanitizers and hand washing stations and thermometers and everything. These things cost money. No help has been given the education sector. Now you suddenly want them to come in and now take over, and they will. I know a lot of those teachers. They love the students at heart, and they want to do the job. They will, but is it fair on them? Is it fair health-wise? I mean, it takes only one child to catch it and die. And, for us to have a whole lot of mess on our hands. Just one child. That, this child, he was there for an examination, caught the virus, and is dead.
It's not even that. We were talking on the COVID-19 studio, one of the times, we were talking to a pediatrician who talked about the fact that children most times are asymptomatic. They don't show the symptoms, but they carry this, and it's easier for them to transmit it to the adult and all of that. So in that kind of situation, what do we do?
Well, we just stay away from it. That's what I mean. It sounds very beautiful, the way Professor Bekwe has put it, and we might. But when you think of Ghana and all other West African countries, how many students do they have?
Okay, let's leave that. Let's just hold on to that question. We'll look at how many students and what is the way forward. What's the best solution to go with the three academicians we have in the studio? We'll come back from this break. Thank you for staying with us, and we still have the academics. All the three of them are here. Larry, you wanted to read something?
Yes, Adekunle Yusuf says, I guess the Professor Ibekwe is just speaking theoretically. All he has said is not possible practically. Transmission will skyrocket I was expecting him to suggest a digital approach instead.
Well, Festus Akimboewa says, so if the coronavirus is still with us by this time next year, does it mean that the kids will have to lose 2 years? Can't we trust our children to do the right thing if properly instructed? Dr. Olateju, Adefeso Olateju, this is, okay, let me say this is like a multi-headed question for you. So Professor Awoshike asked a question before we went on that break where she said, these other West African countries that are going ahead with their exams, what's the population? What's their student population? Can we compare what they have to the Nigerian student population? That's one. And then Festus's question where he says, so if the coronavirus stays with us till this time next year, the children will have to lose like 2 years. How do we get a balance in all of this?
Oh, great. Thank you for that question. I think that you're right in the in comparing, our population size, with that of other West African countries. I don't think there's much to be said there. I mean, Nigeria is so much bigger, than any of the other countries in question. But I think perhaps Nigeria is also not as prepared as some of the other West African countries to take on this monster, of learning during a pandemic, in the way that it should. That said, I do note that there have been fantastic, interventions and innovations from several state governments across the country and education innovators. We've just surveyed about 2,000 persons who've either been impacted by the virus in terms of learning or who are providing some sort of learning solutions. And the results are fascinating. But I do think that, preparedness as a country is how I would then answer your second question, which is what happens if the pandemic is still here next year? Well, chances are that it will still be here next year. But we need as a country to continue to strengthen our data collection and evidence generation strategies. It is so imperative. You see, in most of the other countries that are taking decisions to reopen the economy and also to have children come back to school. I think one of the most, popular examples was Denmark, the earlier days of the crisis, and Israel, of course, was, having kids going to school and then, closing some of them down as they saw spikes. One thread runs across, and that is a dedication to data, collecting data, reviewing that data, learning from that data, and course correcting as we go along the way. You see, the reality is that I don't think that any reasonable Nigerian right now who is observing this pandemic and how it is playing out is going to expect its government to have all the answers. That's not possible. No one has all the answers. We've seen massive economies almost crumble under the weight of this pandemic. However, we do know that what we can develop is a capacity to watch the evolution. And for example, if we say we want kids to go back to school, have we even piloted this? Have we in real life seen what the effect could be if children decided to go to school? And then there are ethical issues around that as well, because when you're doing social research with minors, you really do have to ask these ethical questions again and again. Should we even pilot in the real sense? Whose children are going to be the guinea pigs? Who wants their children to be the guinea pigs? I think Prof. Awoshike has talked about, challenges around teachers, and some of the health issues that teachers may be facing that we don't even know about. Do we have data on this? You see, because all of this data, when we aggregate it, is what is really going to help us to innovate in a way that ensures that come next year, even if the pandemic is still with us, we would have created mechanisms of deploying the curriculum, of assessing the curriculum, and of tracking to see how that entire process is working. And so anyone who works in the space of data collection, evidence generation, strategy really does need to be invited to the table right now when it comes to policy making, so that we can use the evidence to make the decisions that will help us, to ensure that our children continue to learn at this time. So this is my perspective.
Now, Prof, suppose, because she spoke about, suppose this virus is still with us in 2 years, are schools going to remain closed for 2 years? I think the obvious answer to that is no. That we will have to work out some way for these children to go back to learning. Now, suppose the ministry gave guidelines. The schools must have this in place and that in place and that in place before the graduating classes can come in and sit their exams. Wouldn't that be something to work with instead of just because we haven't heard that the schools have been preparing for reopening.
Well, the schools have not been preparing for reopening, I can tell you that. Because, we talked about the students, we talked about a little bit about the teachers, we haven't spoken about the school owners.
Okay.
I mean, because they will have to bear the brunt of...
And spend the
That's
extra money.
For private schools and
yes.
even for public schools. For example, they're trying to go online now. Public schools, Lagos State public schools. Mm-hmm. And they're teaching the teachers how to teach, but they can't get the students to come in. I mean, there are schools that have about 600 students on the roster, and only 2 showed up for an online class. Yeah, so the logistics is just horrible. I mean, a lot of these children public school children have gone to their trades, helping their mom sell, buying and selling and all that. So they either didn't hear about it or they just couldn't care less.
Or they don't have the means.
Or they don't even know how to go online.
Yeah.
So we have to align everything that we're doing. If you say the schools should prepare yes, we can do that. Schools can do that. But when we went on break, forced break, before the final exam in the second term, mm-hmm. Some parents are still owing. They've refused to pay anything. There's no income coming in for the schools. So how does the school now prepare for the children? Yeah. Now we could say, all right, the WAEC age parents should fund this, but is it fair? Mm-hmm. So it's all right now. It's unsettled, and we just need time. To like Dr. Mo said, we need time to learn how this thing is behaving, strategize, how we're going to react to it before we move on.
Okay, Professor Ibekwe, the issue of the school administration or management, and the teachers, that again, when you talk about having the students coming to write their exams, even though someone here is saying that you're doing your points are quite fantastic, but then somebody else is concerned about the fact that they thought you'd be preferring digital solutions. Because, first of all, the schools, how prepared are the schools to receive the students? Who is funding the preparations, both for the public and the private schools? Professor Awochika just give an example now of a school that had 600 students on their register. And then when they decided to go online, they had just 2 show up. Many of those children are back helping their parents or one thing or the other. Again, how prepared are these teachers to receive the students or even to stay healthy enough to teach the students?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. You see, if you look at this trend of discourse, easy way out is to say, just shut down the school indefinitely until when coronavirus goes, all right? But if you want to take the uncharted course and take issues head on, you have to holistically consider all the options left for us. Online is a digital way of testing is desirable, but the reality is how many of these children, how many of our institutions, have privy to utilization of this online? Even the online lectures going on right now is very, very little percentage that have access to this. So that is not feasible. Then secondly, you talk of the teachers. Yes, the teachers have been taken into consideration in the point I was mentioning. That's why I said that responsibilities abound to each and every one of us. The teachers, they have to be well prepared. I said that they have to have some training, and they have to be checked and scrutinized, just as you're checking the students. when they are within school. And I say that limiting contact going forward is our thinking of, instead of the students coming to stay 1 full month in the school, considering 2 weeks, within this period, so that we can further get ready. As somebody just suggested in one of the mails you had, nobody knows how long this is going to be, because we have not even gotten to the peak. We have not had a plateau to start talking of going down before we talk of possibly when coronavirus is going to clear. So it is a load of responsibilities, which we should not be afraid to start preparing for. We have like 2-3 weeks left. Can we be able to put most of these things in place and look at how it pans out, And I said, let's de-emphasize the issue of primary coming on board. Let's de-emphasize the issue of JSS coming on board. The most critical, as we're speaking, is SS3. But if all this, after holistic assessment of the situation, we discover that we won't be able to meet up with this, then we should be able to persuade WAEC not to take this exam, because over 60% of candidates enrolled into these exams are Nigerians. So technically, we are using our funds to run WAEC. So I don't see a reason why the other African countries should be writing the exams and our children should be left in limbo. You see, it doesn't add up. We should all live up to our responsibilities. And if we do this...
So you say that you are concerned about SS3. Okay, they write the WAEC, and then what do they do thereafter? They're supposed to go into university, I assume. But universities are not even in session. They're not graduating anybody, so there'll be no vacancies open in the universities.
You have a point there, but at the same time, don't forget that there is a trend of thought. These children have been prepared and they've gotten to a stage of writing this exam. They have finished phase 1 of the exams, entrance into the universities, and they are technically ready to take the second phase of exam. I know that plan is on the way, considering when possible that the higher institutions could reopen. If everything is on ground and ready to go, and the students, they have all done their own part, and we discover that most of our institutions are not open, then they got to wait. But now they are better prepared to take these exams rather than you're delaying them ad infinitum while waiting for, the higher institutions to reopen. First and foremost, we can't put the cart before the horse. The students have to do their own part, take all their exams while waiting for higher institutions to reopen. As at when due, depending on how...
Prof, look, we're almost out of time, so let's just read this tweet so that the three of you can weigh in on this and we wind down. Ife Korede says, I wish you can see, he says, they refuse to open schools, but they can hold elections in Edo and Ondo states. Says every decision they make is for themselves, and that's not helping Nigeria. Dibara says, it's very funny that some of our discussions are sounding like government can't provide the conducive environment to a 1% of a people to go and take an external exam, which other African countries are prepared to take.
Wasborn says Israel tried to open schools and they had to beat a retreat as the pandemic skyrocketed. There's no need to put the children at risk. We have to be alive before we can talk about education. No school for my kids for now, he says.
Ayatunde Richard says boarding students should be allowed to write their exams in any secondary school close to their homes. We cannot stop our existence because of the pandemic. Life must go on. And finally, Otumba Elkanah says, Nigeria seems not to be prepared. We're not a proactive nation. It's unfortunate. And let's start with you, Dr. Olateju. If you can weigh in on all of this as we begin to wind down. Way forward.
Thank you very much. I think that the way forward is for us to begin to recalibrate as a country. Recalibrate in the sense that we really do need to start asking ourselves very, very deep questions about where we see ourselves as a country in the future. There is a national planning exercise that is currently ongoing, and my hope is that it will continue to be as participatory, as it has started out, being. But the point is that for us to be at this juncture where we are asking whether we should administer an exam during a pandemic that seems set to kill more people than perhaps even our own civil war, I think we really do need to be very careful. At the same time, we also know that the reality is that within the context of, when we think about schooling, schooling is not just about helping children develop cognitive skills. Schools also serve as nannies. Schools serve as safe spaces. We know that the rise in, for example, sexual assault and rape and gender-based violence that we have seen during this period of the pandemic is very closely related to the fact that children don't have a safe space called school to go to. So this is a very complex situation that we find ourselves in. Countries that have gone through perhaps not as serious, but similar issues, for example, Sierra Leone during the Ebola time, will tell you that the reality is it is only consistently collecting useful data and using that data to think deeply about next steps. Can you reach the promised land? And I hate to speak vaguely, but the reality is that this is what we really need to be doing. In the short term, children writing WAEC or not writing WAEC should also help us ask ourselves very fundamental questions. Are these examinations simply for the purpose of regurgitating knowledge? Or are we truly testing what children need to be able to do, and not just know, to be able to do in a world like today? I think we really need to get to the heart of that matter.
Thank you very much, Professor Oshika.
Well, I don't think we're advocating that children don't do exams ad infinitum. I think what we're advocating is let's prepare. I didn't hear anything about, what space the children are going to use, how we're going to administer this exam. We just hear students are going to resume, and that's it. So we just need time in the short term to prepare for these children to come and take this exam. And we would need to see actually what the government or the schools have put in place in such a way that our children will be safe. A lot of parents...
Thank you, Professor. We have run completely out of time. Professor Abiola Oshika, President and CEO of OASIS, and we had joining us via Skype Professor Titus Ibekwe, Professor of Otorhinolaryngology, as well as Dr. Mo Adefeso Olateju, who's MD, the Education Partnership Center. Thank you all very much for coming to share your insights with us this morning. We do pray that our children should be able to go back to school ASAP, especially those who are in examination years. Thank you very much. Sunrise will be right back with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.
Thank you, and the show continues. Okay, so one of our very old fans of the show is back. He's been away, he went on a hiatus, he's back. But he wrote something, and that would form like the opener for this topic today. So Dr. Ikmosa says, the strength of the system is best tested in times of crisis. Innovative thinking is necessary at the level of exam administration to solve this problem. He says this is a hydra-headed problem with economic, social, and technological implications. However, addressing the logistical concern is the immediate solution to this problem. He was writing about the education part. But the part I want to bring in is where he talks about it has economic, social, and technological implications. Therefore, innovation needs to be brought in. Can innovation be brought into the fight against corruption?
Question mark.
The president yesterday officially affirmed the suspension of Mr. Ibrahim Mago as the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and appointed Mohammed Umar to take charge, coming after Mago was probed by the Special Presidential Panel reviewing the activities of the Anti-Graft Agency. Well, to help us understand all of this, in the studio we have Olumide Fushika, who's a senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us. And from our Abuja studio, we have architect Ezekiel Nyaitok, who's the convener of Nigeria First. Hello, architect. Is he there? I can't hear him. Okay. Well, we'll get back to him. Architect Nyaitok. Yeah, I love the fact that he's smiling. But let's start with the lawyer. Mr. Fushika, what hit you, or what was your first thought when that news broke about, not the official suspension, about the fact that the head of the anti-graft agency was being, well, allegedly, no, the news at first was that he was arrested, social media blogs, then he was invited for questioning. He's being questioned.
He was taken for because he wasn't. I mean, he was actually taken.
Okay. So what was your first thought?
Well, I wouldn't want us to reduce it to the issue.
It's not.
Which I think is one of our problems in the country. Build up essence. When we quote unquote fall below our expectation, I think that anyone who is familiar, who has dealings with that institution, wouldn't have been surprised that. Well, the surprise is that the only surprise would be, oh, they eventually got to do this.
Okay, let me get Nyaitok to weigh in on that. Architect Nyaitok, your first thought when you heard the news?
I really didn't have any first thought. I just felt, I hope that it's about time that we start to do things right in this country. So for me, I really didn't have any first thought, because anybody who knows what's going on in Nigeria knows that a day will come when these issues will be revisited. So for me, my prayer was that I hope that was the beginning of that day. Secondly, maybe as we further our discussion, I'm concerned about the bigger picture concerning this country, because we really don't know how the global system operates. We really have not sat down to strategically, intellectually, and cerebrally look at how to address the problems of Nigeria. If we are seeking to have foreign direct investment in this country, what are the parameters? What are the things that are important to them? Mr. Magu was the poster boy for crime fight and everything. And I know the nonsense that's going on must be addressed, but it must be addressed tactfully. We need to know what signals we are sending out. Everybody, every country has problems. Every country has corruption. But there's a way for international perspectives you handle that corruption. I believe that what was done was just another of our crude methods of seeking cheap popularity. There were better ways, and I'm very disappointed with the current government, because I wonder when some of these things will change. There are many ways of killing a rat. You can kill that rat very well in a way that your neighbors are happy with you. And you can kill the rat such that even the killing is more of a problem to your neighbors. And they're like, what's going on here? I think as we advance the discussion, we get into more details.
I'll stay with you, Acting Nyaitok. You said something about the fact that it appeared as if you want to do something, but there's no clarity around this thing you want to do. Is it a question, in project management, they'll talk about defining, first of all, the project. What is that project you want to go and carry on? And then you now break it down into phases. Who are the stakeholders? At what point do you begin to say, is there a scope? Is there a deadline? Is there a beginning and an end? Is it a question of defining the project, its beginning and end? Is that where we are?
Beautiful. You are supposed to be a media person, but you are coming into my area, project management, and you couldn't have put it better. And I really want, you see, Do you know, let me ask you a very simple question that's going to almost jolt your mind. There's EFCC, there's ICPC, there's corruption. Are we aware that EFCC is just financial crimes, stealing money? And that's just an aspect of corruption. Corruption is wider. Corruption is more vast. And the body that handles the wider aspect of corruption is ICPC. What do we hear about ICPC? Corruption goes into ethics. Corruption goes into values. Corruption goes into nepotism. All these are the different dimensions. And a country, the government, where their primary, one of their three fundamental offers to the country is fighting corruption, has never even stepped up to define corruption, to define the project. What is corruption? What is corruption? A man who is sectional, nepotic, is that person corrupt or not corrupt? You know, it sounds funny, but that is corruption. There are so many dimensions, variables of corruption that we have not even defined a project in 5 years of an administration. That is why the thing about Magu has become so large, because we think that corruption is, there was something that President Jonathan said. Unfortunately, I mean, he probably was not a man given to words, in terms of, diction and, choosing words probably. When he said stealing is not corruption, what he really was trying to say is the thief is just one part of corruption. Stealing is just one part of corruption. Corruption is wider. Now, let's come to Magu. If your stepping stone, your primary offer to a country is how to fight corruption, before we talk of economy and maybe security, let's start with corruption. Common sense tells you that for something so important, you start by defining. You go into recruitment criteria to start with. Then you now talk in terms of methodologies and things like that, how we're going to, but no matter how, first, you define the project. Secondly, no matter how this man is going to implement the parameters for the product, he has to have the capacity, the competence, the capability. What are the factors that will make people have confidence in him? Number one is he is extremely knowledgeable, enlightened. He has what you call the competence. He has the capacity. He has the capability. He has that. Second, he has the track record of being incorruptible. There's a name that you call today and they'll say, wow. For instance, I'll give you a very simple name. If you call Father Kuka today, I mean, people are likely going to say, hey, good man, but can he do it? Do you understand me? There's another name I'll call, and people say, hey, that guy, that thief. Oh. Do you understand me? So the question was, how competent was Magu all round in terms of cerebral content, in terms of relevant knowledge, in terms of exposure, in terms of physical capacity to withstand the stress, in terms of his mental acumen? Then you now go into his past. What sort of a man is he? Is he an incorruptible person, a man that will put his foot down, a man to whom his integrity is more than anything else, a man who is willing to walk away if you ask him to sign a document he does not believe in? And then you now say, what sort of template working document are we going to give him? I mean, we ask him during interrogation, your fight, how do you want to do it? The Senate screening. He now comes and, no, the experts say, no, that's anachronistic. The world today has gone beyond catch a thief, prosecute a thief, throw him in prison. We don't have money to feed prisoners. And a man says, my approach is going to be proactive. I'm going to stop it from happening. And they're like, that sounds good. That makes sense. Now, how do you want to do it? And he says, technology. Number two, I'm going to tell you that the people I'm going to give this country a clean image. People have to see us as clean. So we're going to do back and, the front end and the back end operations. Instead of all these poster of this man is corrupt, that man is corrupt, this man is corrupt, the other man is corrupt. We are going to do something that is going to go behind. We're going to have the best tracking system, the best interrogation system. We're going to catch the criminals. We're going to put them inside house. We're going to recover the loot, and we're going to nail them. We don't need, let's start to project Nigeria as a neat country. This is no longer happening. When they brought in the TSA, we saw what it did. So when a man talks to you that day, you know that he's ready for the business.
Okay,
Pause, Mr. Ayaitu. Can you please put a pause? Thank you. Mr. Olumide Fusika, for a government that came into power riding on, we are going to fight corruption, we are going to fight corruption, the president is incorruptible, how do you think this government has done in this fight?
Well, it's the answer is obvious. If the person that you put in charge of the fight is now himself embroiled, as being presented now as corrupt.
Not yet. Not yet.
Well, alleged.
Thank you.
You know, alleged. I mean, that is not. So that says a lot about the fight against corruption. And I think they've had enough opportunity to assess and know that this person is not, not necessary. But, we bring a lot of politics into these things. Well, I was also a bit, I can say I was guilty, like most Nigerians. When, for instance, the Senate rejected him the last time, we all went, oh, why did they, maybe because of the personalities involved at that time, because he was also coming up to say he's fighting them, or well, he has allegations against them. And we say, oh, it's because he has allegations against them, that's why they don't want to confirm him. So because we are looking for heroes in this country, that's the truth. We all genuinely want heroes. And when somebody gives that impression, we jump on we sometimes are not so critical about, but people begin to doubt when, for instance, I think it was on one of your programs, and this man was asked, okay, how do you institutionalize the fight against corruption? And he was talking about buildings and all that. If, they were monitoring properly, at that stage, somebody should have, do we have the right person doing this job, and so on and so forth. Beyond that, and that's why I said we should not personalize it. We should not forget that this is a commission. So, when you say a commission, there's a board.
Yeah.
So, Magu is just like chief executive.
So, in this case now, I wrote something here, said institution versus individual. Now, he's the acting chairman of the commission. There's a board. So, if the acting chairman, according by all ethical principles, he's not supposed to operate independent of the board. So if at the point he has questions to answer, what does that say of the board?
That's what I'm driving at. And it's not about EFCC alone.
Yes.
You see all these commissions, NCC, this, that, and all that. They have commissions, they have boards. If you have interactions with them, you begin to wonder whether, I think those boards are just a place for politicians to put their cronies and all that so that they meet and collect sitting allowances or something like that. They don't do anything. Because if you have a commission that is actually doing its work, all these things we are hearing now should not happen. And if it was happening, the board should have been able to discover and, done something about it. Well, again, when you have a board that wants to do something about it, they get disbanded. Take the instance of, I think it was the one on pension or something. Is it NSI? When the
PENCOM.
Is it PENCOM
NSITF.
No, NSITF.
I can't remember the particular, the one with health management, NHI or something.
NHIS.
And the board was raising issues about the DG, The minister came in and all that. And the DG was so powerful that he was able to get his board disbanded. So when we are talking about institutionalizing this fight, it goes beyond, having a DG or whatever title, the chairman of EFCC and so on and so forth. the quality, the structure is there. Well, I'm not disagreeing with my colleague speaking from Abuja. It's not as if we have not conceptualized it. We have. That's why you have ICPC. You have EFCC, each with its own defined role. They are not supposed to be. You have the police as well, you know. But who are the human beings that you have now put in place to implement what you have defined? If you don't have the right type of people, not only as DG, as chairman or DG or whatever, but also as board members, independent-minded people, knowledgeable people who can stand up and say, look, what you are doing is not right, you know, you have a problem.
Okay, just hold your thought there. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back. When we come back, we're looking at this duplication of functions for a particular thing, and yet that thing is not achieved. How do we work around that? We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. The matter of duplication of functions, let me swing this to Architect Nyaito. We brought in the issue of project management. Now you have different aspects of a project, and they all appear to be doing the same thing. So imagine that a mason in your buildings, your mason and your carpenter and your painter and your electrician all happen to want to mix cement at the same time. How would that building grow?
Thank you, sir. Today we have places like the EFCC, we have the ICPC, you have the NFIU, you have the Nigerian police, you have so many others that should check that monster called corruption, which I would like to very humbly insist that we have not defined what corruption is. Number two, we have not gone into the types of corruption. Because except you define a project, you can't recruit people to do it. Now, let me just be as fast as I possibly can. Number one, what is corruption? Corruption is not just stealing. It is holistic. Corruption goes into the side that the police will handle on civil cases and everything. It goes into the office where you have people like the ICPC, the office holders. It goes into financial crimes when you have the EFCC. It goes into another one of the major, most important arms of fighting corruption has been completely neglected. For me, that's number one. For preventive, what is that? National Orientation Agency. That is the number one agency for addressing corruption, because for you to preempt people, you need to arm them with the information. You need to let them know. Look, I'll give you a little story. A little girl was going for a birthday party with his uncle, and the police stopped him. They asked for this, he gave. He asked for that, he gave. Time was going, and the little girl was getting impatient. At the time, he told his uncle, "Uncle, give them 20 naira, let us go." To that little girl, this uncle was just this greedy person who just will not part with common 20 naira, that just give to the police, we go. If our child thinks that way, where is our future? But going to homes, going to the orientation agency, they will let us know what patriotism is. They will let us know what is good and what is bad. These are the things that will preempt what will come into the monster that we call corruption. Secondly, are we aware that, I always say this and I stand by it, there are three types of corruption. There's a corruption of need, there's a corruption of greed, there's a corruption of lunacy. I'll quickly run into this. Corruption of need. A man goes home and his daughter is dying, the only child he has, and they need 100,000 for operation. He is keeping 100,000 in the office. He runs and picks. This is Friday. He hopes that by Monday he will return it. Unfortunately, the child is saved, and Monday he has not. They come in and audit it. He has stolen. That is a crime. But why did he do it? He did it to save his child. Is it right? Is it wrong? We can debate that. But the fact is, that is what I call corruption of need. Is it right? There's a punishment. He'll be punished. Okay? There's another guy who steals 10 million. He has to pay his rent and this and that and that. We call that corruption of, not 10, 50 million. 50 million is not for you to pay your rent. It's not for you to pay school fees. It's something else. Greed. But we are now going to a man who steals 100 billion. That is corruption of lunacy. That guy is lunatic because he knows that his entire family, his entire clan cannot expend that money in a lifetime. Now, when we define this, we bring in the different bodies to address them. National Orientation Agency, please let people know that the corruption of need, let's interface with the people and the system and see how we can. 90% of Nigerians are good people, God-fearing people, pushed into certain things that are wrong and should be punished because of necessity, education. Even your Megad now sends his child to a private school. Megad. And yet my mother spent so little to take me to school because I had public schools. No public water supply, no public power, no public schools, no public health care. Everybody. And their salaries cannot take it. The system makes everybody to be corrupt. That's corruption of need. Corruption of greed can be handled by police and all those things. Those people should be locked and things like that. But EFCC, for instance, should be limited to the corruption of lunacy. Why should you have a guy that took your 200, the 10 million, 5 million, you are going to EFCC? Now, let's come to the final aspect of what roles each person should play. In the American system, you have the SEALs. Do you understand me? These are people that if you send them to a system, you know that these are not just ordinary soldiers. These are trained, and they don't, like eagles, they don't catch flies. There are certain things they don't even go into. They go for the big, when you call EFCC, people need to be afraid. And then you now think in terms of the recruitment of these people. So I think that the different bodies that are there for two reasons. One is that for the right thing, each specialization. The second is that a lot of agencies are created for political expediency. And I hope that that's an aspect I would like to address as a final aspect before we leave. So please make sure you give me my 5 minutes on that particular part, on this corruption and the system that must be addressed.
Mr. Fusika, we talk of corruption all the time. But some people say that our society breeds corruption. A tuber of yam today is 1,500, 2,000. And you pay a man who has a family what we call in this country minimum wage. So at the end of every month, you give him 30,000 naira. Out of that, he's going to pay his rent, he's going to pay his children's school fees, he's going to feed his children, he's going to clothe them. How does all that happen out of 30,000 naira? And you expect him not to be corrupt? Same for the police force. Those who are supposed to keep us on the straight and narrow, prevent us from being corrupt. You give them maybe about 30,000 naira as well a month. So they come to work with bathroom slippers. Their uniforms are torn because they have to pay out of that 30,000 naira. They have to buy their uniforms themselves. It seems like our system breeds corruption. It is begging for corruption to happen. What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think that's the problem of the country. I don't think so, really. Okay. Because this idea of saying the system breeds corruption and all of us are corrupt and all that.
And you say that?
No, it's not from you.
Thank you.
That's the general thing that, okay, we are all the same. I don't agree. And the reason why I don't agree is because that is not the reason, that is not the main problem we are facing in this country. Of course, you can look at the policeman, and I think I've mentioned it in this one of your programs before. You pay this example that you gave of paying somebody 30,000 naira. It's not even 30,000 naira. I think it used to be 18,000 naira until some. And the person has a wife, a number of children, and he comes to work every day. It comes to Alausa Secretariat. He's living at Okukumaiko, the transport from Okukumaiko to Alausa. And you see him every day regularly reports, So everybody knows it's making ends meet somehow. But I don't think that's the problem we have in the country. The problem we have in the country, and I think we should address it, is the problem of the people we have put in offices, whether they say we elected them or they are appointed, and they go into this place and just grab and grab and grab and grab. That's why you don't have good public schools. That's why the health system is has failed and all that. It's not because of that nurse working in the hospital. That's not the reason why the hospital is not functioning. I don't agree. Of course, it's not something to be encouraged. We need to fight it. But the idea of saying, no, we have all sinned and come short of the glory, like the architect said, 90%, even I don't know, majority of Nigerians are good people. We are not all, of course, we are forced into situations where we have, even when you want to resist, you cannot, you go on the road, you are trying to get somewhere, you say you are not corrupt, the policeman comes with his, myriads of problems and all that, and you just want to get away from that place. You give him 20 naira. It's corruption. You are forced into it. We are conscripted, let me put it that way, to be party to the whole thing. But it doesn't, that's not the reason why they set up PFCC. It wasn't the reason why they set up ICPC. We set up these bodies to tackle the corruption that has brought Nigeria to its knees. And you find that in government.
Well, you see, those ones in government will tell you that anytime they come out, the man on the street or the man in their neighborhood is always asking them for one thing or the other. So they are forced to make up for the gap created by them taking care of those needs that the people bring their way. So they tell you, in other words, I'm doing this because of the people around me.
Which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
No, it's propaganda. That's the excuse of the politicians.
But
it's just propaganda.
Having put that out there, we do know that the way public service is structured is such that everything is catered for by the nation. So at the end of the day, if you're in public office, you could actually be there till you leave and your salary is not touched. So how is it that they still go ahead to take out of the
because they see that the country is not functioning well.
They can get away with it.
No, not only that they can get away with it. They see it's not functioning well. They have no hope that the country will ever get better.
And they don't want to make the country get better.
No, so what they try to do is to find solutions for themselves. The road is not good, buy a jeep. There's no water, dig a borehole. There's no electricity, buy a generator. Tomorrow, my children, there will be no public school, still enough to send them abroad. So it's, that's the mentality behind some of these things, apart from people who are just, would I say klepto, they just want to steal, even when they don't have the need for what they are stealing. But that's the mentality of most of the people we have in government. And I'm saying it generally, I'm not, because you can't really bring out, you have PDP, you have APC, you have, 79, 83 experience. I was in the secondary school then, but quite political, You could see when they go to the National Assembly then, you always will know what UPN position will be, what PRP position will be, what MPN position will be. But since we started this, whatever, we've been complaining about National Assembly members taking money and all that. Have you ever seen any opposition in their midst? When it comes to that, it's the single party. They are united. So you look to the left, you look to the right, APC, PDP, there's no difference. You can even see, take Edo State, for instance, now. It's just an example. The one that flew the flag of PDP in 2016 is now the one flying the flag of APC in 2020, and the other way around. So it's the same party. That's one of the problems we have. We have managed to, I don't know how we did it, create a system where we just see going into government as an opportunity. It's just another opportunity to, make money in illegal ways and so on and so forth. And we have taking that to all these institutions, ICPC, EFCC, you call it Economic and Financial Crime Commission. That's why I say if you have a commission, if you have a body that is in control of that organization, and you know what is going on in the organization. If you hear, for instance, that they've set up a section that is, that deals with land in EFCC, the boss should ask, what have we got to do with land matters? If there's a board, you understand what I'm saying? And I'm telling you, this is basic experience that we have. EFCC is just, they set it up because we have problem with the police. It's supposed to be, a special intervention agency but they've managed to turn it to police by another name. When you go to their station, it's just a police station, where they do the normal thing. And this thing became rampant in the last 5 years. Very bad. And I'm speaking as a lawyer who has interfaced with this fellow. So you hear some cases and you'll be wondering, what are you doing with this case? What's your business in this? It's a debt collector. If you don't know, EFCC is a debt collector. If I'm owing her now, business transaction, she can go there. And they'll find a way to make it criminal. They can say it's to bring it within economic and financial crime. They can say, when I collected the money now, I didn't intend to pay back, so it is 419. They manage to, so the organization is destroyed. Because this thing we are looking at now, don't look at Mago as whatever. If they intend to do anything with that organization, there has to be a cleaner. They need to go into that place and clean, if it is still possible to clean up, because they've brought in so many corrupt individuals into that organization. The place reeks of corruption. So whether they remove this gentleman or they don't remove him now, if they need to do anything with that institution, you need to do I don't know, because we abandoned the police. Rather than addressing the problem of the police, we decided to create EFCC. We created the EFCC, now the same problem. Maybe we are going to create another institution to come and, not clean up. We abandon the EFCC and create another one where we can go and build another building and put people there and say we've built it for so we are building an institution. That is what problem we are having in this.
Are we even abiding by the laws that set up the various institutions?
That's what I'm saying. If demand became, when you lionize, there's no system of even checking what is going on in this place. Take for instance, if somebody gives you work here now, there must be a way of checking what's your job description. How well are you performing on that job? There must be some way of appraising. You don't put somebody and say he's chairman or DJ. Nobody can talk to him. Nobody can control. Nobody checks whether he's even performing or performing the role of the thing. You've created a monster. That's what you've done.
As we wind down now, when a building is not functioning effectively, when a structure is defected from the foundation, do you continuously deal with the roof, or do you bring down the building to correct the defect?
Again, I need to warn you. You are chatting in unfamiliar territory. I don't sit here to quote law. If not so, the senior advocate will put me in trouble. Please stay on your media. But you are doing well, I must admit. Two things. The very first is that when you have a structure to renovate, to look into, to interrogate, you look at that structure and you look at the budget and you look at the essence. Then, based on your professional competence, you advise the owner that you are going to spend 20 million to renovate this structure, but it has major structural implications. At the end of 20 million, you are not going to have something that is substantially, safer. It might look nicer, paintings and everything. My advice to you is that it's a story building, but this story building will not last. Can you please let us demolish it and use this 20 million to build a bungalow that has probably certain levels that makes it look like a story building? It will give you a new building and it will be safe for you. That is the advice. Let me tell you for where we are today. We are trying to renovate a structure that is not structurally sound. without addressing the structural element. Instead, we go on the aesthetics and everything. We can't stop corruption because corruption revolves around one element called election. You see, we all know how much money is spent on election. Hundreds of billions is spent on presidential election. Where do these monies come from? How can Magu resist the pressure for him to meet the needs of National Assembly members, of political leaders, of heads of parastatals that must deliver for the general election? How can the MD of NDDC resist the target that is given to fund election? Am I saying something that we don't all know as Nigerians? So we go back to the fundamentals. How do we address our elections? There is no National Assembly member that is going to set up rules that will implicate them or stop them from having money to prosecute the next election. It's not going to happen. There's no National Assembly member that is going to come to bring laws that will stop him from recruiting what he has spent. If we want to make a difference, that's why on June 12th, a group of eminent Nigerians came together. I had to look for them, run to them, to join them. Eminent Nigerians. I don't want to start calling names now. And they said, look, enough is enough. When I looked at something that they did, he said, you must even have your tax before you can be part of us. You must not have any criminal. It's not a political party. That is why when they say political party, some of them ran away and said, no, like my distinguished son, Agbakoba. He said, no, because it's not a political party. Mr. Patutomi said, I am in APC. I was in PDP before I went to YDP. So stay in your party. This is a body of nationalists who say, enough is enough. We're going to do something. And let me tell you, whether we like it or not, ready or not, a change has come. What's happening to Magu is a dress rehearsal. It's rehearsal for what is coming. And I want all Nigerians to be upbeat and ready for it.
All right, thank you very much. I'm afraid we have to go at this point in time. We're completely out of time. Architect Ezekiel Nyaitu, convener of Nigeria First, and Mr. Olumide Fusika, senior advocate of Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your insight with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sunrise will be back in a moment. Please stay with us.
Still off. Sorry about that. Welcome back, and thank you for staying with us. Now we're going to be looking at flooding. The rains have come, so it becomes an issue for us to look at very, very seriously. A recent report by the Nigeria Hydrological Survey Agency, NIHSA, for its 2020 annual flood outlook, AFO, revealed that no fewer than 102 local government areas in 28 states are at risk of flooding. Now that the rainy season is here, as well as the floods, how do we handle this matter, especially in light of the current pandemic? Well, the right person is here to answer that question as well as many other questions, and he is Mr. Olalekan Sodeinde, who's Permanent Secretary, Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources. Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you very much for coming to talk to us this morning. Yes, I know that we go through this ritual every year. The rains come and we keep talking about, oh, don't put your dirt in the gutters, don't do. We go through this ritual every year. And then when we have floods, we now invite people like you and ask them, what are we going to do to avoid flooding, especially in Lagos, that is below sea level?
Thank you very much. Well, the structure of a question is a bit tricky. The word avoid. You can't avoid flooding.
Okay, let's see. How do we handle it?
Okay, manage it.
Manage. Thank you.
Because actually, flooding is a natural phenomenon because rainfall will happen. It's a natural thing. There's a water cycle. It goes up, it comes back, goes up, changes, its natural state. But the real term is stormwater management because rain is not the cause of the flooding. It is what that rainfall event becomes. Naturally, the water cycle requires that some part of that volume of the water volume should go into the ground. Percolation, shallow and deep, like about 50% of that. Another 40% should stay on the greens, the trees, the grasses. They are the water gets stored in various places. And maybe about 5 or 10 should go as runoff. That's what we call the storm water itself. That's what should be seen to be moving. But fortunately, human quest for development and habitation have distorted all this natural balance. If only we can create that God-given balance, then we'll have, if you just cast them back to Ikoyi of old, there were not that many drainage infrastructures there. You had natural drainage existed. There were no fences, there were no barriers. You had barbed wire fences. From your house to my house to her house, the water keeps on until it gets to the natural outflow, the floodplains, the Ikoyi parks of those days into the lagoon. But unfortunately, human quest for development, we put a lot of barriers, we sealed a lot of the surfaces that should take the percolation part of it. We cut a lot of the greens that should take another volume. We're not having what we have near 100% runoff. And it's mind-boggling if you now think of the kind of capacity of infrastructure required to convey all this. So I'm just trying to show the picture of the enormity of the problem, actually.
And that picture paints a very bleak one, indeed. Because if we look at the number of states that the NIHSA talked about, rivers, Cross River, Delta, Lagos, Ondo, Bayelsa, Sokoto, that's up north, that's supposed to have a lower water table, Kogi, Niger, Kaduna, Gombe, Adama, again, far north. And you think that because they are up there, their water table, which is lower, we shouldn't have that much of flooding. But now that's where they're expected to see major floods there. Benue, FCC, Nasarawa, Delta, Oyo, and all those states, 102 local governments in all of this state. If indeed the problem of human activity has caused the natural drains to be blocked up, much of the natural drains have been blocked up, so to speak, because we have walls. You talked about them. We have walls, we have roads built up, the greens are mostly gone. So at the end of the day, is it that there is no hope? Because we keep getting these floods. From 2012, we've had major floods sacking many communities. And almost every year, we have this kind of flood. What's the hope?
Can we cascade history?
Okay.
No. You said 2012.
Beyond that,
okay, beyond there, we didn't have flooding, right?
No, we had.
We've always had. That's what I'm trying to say.
The most serious was in 2012, if you recall.
Yeah. That's why I picked 2012.
Yes, I remember. Even the state government said people should not come to work.
We've always had flooding. See, there are various kinds of flooding. You might think you're in the desert. Flood happened in the desert. Dubai was flooded some time ago. Recall?
Yeah.
Last year. Yeah, you're in the desert. But you see, two things determine flooding: the intensity of the rainfall and the duration. Land has a lot of, I'm sorry, I don't know the way to explain that.
We're listening.
There's a carrying capacity for soil, soil absorption rates. If the rain is intense, really intense, and the soil can't absorb at the same rate, there'll be some
water
peak, because you're having, flooding happens when you have peak flow in a short time frame. That means I'm having a huge volume of water coming at me that I can't take. I can eventually take it with time. So stormwater management is where you attenuate the peak flow. That is the best practice in stormwater management, attenuation of that peak discharge. So technology requires that we go green. What am I saying here? Sustainability requires that if we can make every square meter of land to retain that semblance of natural balance that ought to be. Because what we have now is a lot of officers believe that quick collection, rapid discharge, and get water away from me. That is not feasible. It's not sustainable. But what engineering proposes is that let every square meter of land be able to hold this, reduce the peak discharge within the time frame. When the rain is falling, let's discharge just a minimal amount of that runoff naturally. When the rain stops, we can now discharge the other part of it. Rainwater, for example, is a very clean medium, very clean. So, I mean, green housing design requires that you now provide storage for rainwater, whereby when it's raining, you store it in your property. When what goes out is just that 10-20% naturally that will convey and not create any flooding. When the rain stops, this water will still go out through the same infrastructure that has been provided that are unencumbered. But in case whereby everybody just throws everything out at the same time. At the same time. So, two words, peak time. So, that's why, it's something that we have to educate ourselves. You can't just sit in your comfort zone and say, government, do this, do this, do this. We need to engage ourselves and talk to each other, have a conversation on what management role should you play, should I play as an individual, and should government play. Government is doing its own very well. We're providing infrastructure, we're managing them as best as we can. I say that with due humility, sir, as a man. We're doing that.
Okay.
Government spends money year in, year out, providing and maintaining infrastructure.
Which is the question here, because there are those who are already asking. I mean, year in, year out, we already agreed that floods will happen. Flood waters will come. But it's the management of these flood waters. And when we begin to get situations where year in, year out, we're still getting the same level of flood waters in terms of like waters that are retained on the surface, we're still getting almost the same level, then the question of management comes in. How much of education is happening to the citizenry? Is it enough to just announce that, okay, this number of local or communities are going to be affected by storm waters this year, so evacuate, find somewhere safe to go? Is that enough? What kind of information is being given out to the citizenry so that they prepare? Because already the rains are here.
They will always be here.
Yes. No. We're in need already, and
we need them.
In the last few days, I think for about 2 or 3 days, it rained continuously, whether drizzles or, but it rained continuously in the last 2 or 3 days. So, what kind of information should the people be getting, or are they getting now?
Well, should be getting, are getting. I'll talk about are getting.
Okay.
Now we keep saying. Well, let me quickly bring in this. Indices, climate change. Climate change,
yes.
I need to bring it in. Pre-climate change, brouhaha, I don't think we have this kind of level of flooding anywhere. I said earlier in my talk that whatever happens to the runoff, it goes somewhere. And levels are rising, internationally acclaimed. Now, what are we telling people? Flood will happen. Water will flow from a high ground to a low ground.
Yeah.
But water will rise from a low ground to a high ground. Flow and rise, two different things. Drainage infrastructures are designed to accommodate flow. That's what with their conveyor system, tertiary, secondary, primary channels. But whereby you now have buffers, because every natural drainage channel, be it a river, has what we call buffers, floodplains. That when, yes, it's going to happen, the stage of the river is going to rise.
It will fall into
so it has to go into those green buffers, the floodplains. Some are permanently with water, some seasonally. And water is volume. Whereby, if water spreads in the floodplain, it disturbs no one. Natural habitat. But when you and I now decide to now go into this water habitat, no problem still. But we need to provide the necessary engineering to go with it. If water is losing area, what does it gain?
Level.
Depth. It gains height. So you need to give alignments for this volume that you are putting together.
Okay.
These alignments exist.
Okay. The alignments exist. We'll pick up from the existence of the alignments when we'll come back from this break, please. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. We're still talking about stemming out, managing the floods. We're not stemming it again. But, and we still have Mr. Shodende here. Mr. Shodende, you talked about, just for one another, we're talking about when we, being the residents or individuals, decide to go into the buffers for the natural drains, and then we build without necessarily creating those alignments. But when they do exist, what happens?
Now, like I said, where they exist, the alignments were created to take a volume that's going to come with a height. They used to be this high before, now we make them very high. So we expect people to create the energy in their own land. Now, when the water that we're packing together, that we're displacing into this alignment, because there's a master plan for Lagos State for all natural alignment, rather than 169 channel systems in the master plan. Now, just leave these alignments. Let the water come here. This is the height you're to maintain, right? We find out that oftentimes people don't get to that required height. That doesn't even, it's not a real major problem, because once the alignment is free, once the water comes, water will still find its level. It has a good space to flow. But people now, these thoughts go within this recognized, legally identified channel alignment. That is the biggest problem that we have. Because it's only when the sanctity of the alignments are maintained that you have, a route you want to improve, that is construct, that you want to maintain. I mean, it has to be left intact, but it's a running battle whereby people develop within. That is the biggest challenge government has with maintaining its, this alignment. So it's a running battle. Okay. A quarter stream, for example, that is a major link in Lekki axis. It runs from Victoria Island all the way to Ibejuleki. It has a two-way flow. We're at the moment trying to ensure that we create that river. But it's a 42-kilometer long river that's supposed to be a buffer for that axis. So we're not saying it's wrong to go into the wetland, but we need to do the needful to ensure that we give room for this natural element that's supposed to be in the buffer, the water. That's what we're here to appeal for.
Now, Festus Akimboyowa says it's time to upgrade our drainage system in Nigeria, and we need to stop building on floodplains.
But then, when you talk about this floodplain, who gives the approval for the building?
The state.
The state.
I can tell you without even asking anybody, most developments in Lagos, in floodplains, don't have all the approvals required. I used to be in LAPCA, so I can say it without even asking.
When that is found out, what has happened to those developments? Are they brought down? Because
exactly, sir. When we find out that you are within the right-of-way of our channel, there's no other way.
Wow.
Because what you're doing affects a lot of people. It's embarrassing everybody. So we won't, because of one individual, allow people to suffer. So we bring them down.
But Mr. Shodende,
so have we been bringing down?
Yes, we are, sir.
Mr. Shodende, do you think that people are made aware of this enough? Because if they know that their building is going to be brought down, they're not going to be stupid enough to go and build in the floodplain. Is there enough awareness by the state government?
Yes, sir. Yes.
There is.
There is. Because the law says if you want to develop, there are legal guidelines for that you have to follow. And if you get to any government office, they will tell you these are your requirements. There's a list of requirements. One of the requirements is when you're building in a low-lying area, or you're building next to a stormwater channel, existing one, you need to get what they call a drainage clearance. That will tell you, okay, this is my land. Yes, it's your land. How high should I reclaim for me to have comfort when I'm moving? What is the setback I need to give to this alignment so that I won't be within the right of way
Of the
of
water.
the drainage channel. So all these conditions will be given to you. So, I mean, but if you now just buy the land from Shodende family, you didn't get, because if you go to ask for building plan approval, they tell you, do you have a drainage clearance? Go and get a drainage clearance. But you not didn't even go to get an approval.
Drainage clearance.
Yeah, drainage clearance. Drainage services, drainage clearance.
Okay.
So if you don't even
I'm
attempt to
hearing of
get,
that for the first time.
because maybe you didn't develop in a low line or close to a canal.
Okay.
So if you didn't even attempt to even legalize your development by getting a development permit for your structure, you just go there, you buy the land, you just start development. So how to guide you on what you require? Because it's a conversation. Okay. I want to build. Government, this is what I want to build. Is it approvable?
Yes.
Before I can approve this, go here.
Do
I mean,
this.
so it's
Get
a
this.
conversation.
Yes.
But when you don't start a conversation, how can we guide?
Okay.
But we do give general information.
Okay.
Like if you look at the media every day,
Okay.
government keeps talking about, before you build, go and seek approval for your building. It is something that government continually does day in, day out.
So this year's expected floods are coming at a very unique time. The pandemic. The Ogun Dam is likely to open soon on this end, so that increases the amount of water in Lagos during the floods, and the Lagos water table, which is already below sea level. So the question now is, what should the residents of these areas that are likely to be flooded do? I know Lagos mentioned some areas, some local governments, mainland, Etiosa, Isheri, Ikeja, some parts of Ikeja. No. So what should the residents of these areas be doing, besides going to buy SUVs?
Well, I don't know.
or
boats.
motorboats.
Well, there are some areas. You see, being prone to flooding varies. Some areas are going to have river flooding.
Okay.
That will stay for a while. River flooding is whereby the river stage increases and goes to the floodplain. If you're there, the water's going to be there. And the lagoon, which, I mean, Lagos is the most downstream of several river systems.
Yeah.
So we don't have anywhere to discharge. Even if there's flooding in Ogun State, eventually it will flow out.
Into Lagos.
But we are flowing nowhere. The lagoon is here. The lagoon is right. I mean, when it's raining, the ocean is tight. I mean, so we are just going to be, we are the buffer to some other states.
Yes.
So the thing is, the areas that have river flooding, like I tell people, the life is the most important thing. You will know the extent of the intensity coming. Please save your life, first and foremost. While for the Isheri North area, government is coming up with a proposal. We discussed earlier when we were off air that there is a depression in Isheri North, almost about 4 meters depression. So we need to ring fence the areas that have been developed. So even when the water is rising, it won't flow into the low-lying area. People will say Amsterdam has pumping stations. So we're going to have our own pilot pump station development in the Isheri North area, whereby where rain falls, we'll take the rainfall water out, but the flood water outside won't be able to
come in. Okay.
Do you get? So,
yes.
I mean, it's already a low-lying area. There's no energy to flow. Rather than receiving water from outside, we're sealing it up. But rain will still come into that area. So whatever is now coming as runoff, we will now have to just think about added energy, pumping it out.
Okay, but you know, when you take out now, you'll now be adding to the pressure for those who are out there.
No. Out there is already the river. When I say ring fencing, what happens is, natural energy requires that water flows naturally, depending on the gradient. When there's no gradient, you now need to have you have to impede, add energy to take the water out. Okay. So when you're pumping to the reservoir where nobody's been disturbed. So, but you need to do it catchment by catchment because it wasn't planned to be like that. So this is a new, technology that, that we're bringing into the Lagos state. Now, for other areas, as mentioned, is your issue of intensity and duration. What we have mostly in Lagos is flash flooding, not urban flooding. Yes, this place might have some ponding, but within 1-2 hours, I give you my word, because we've done our work. Within 1-2 hours, the water will go. Because what you have then is the capacity of the channel cannot take what is coming at that time because we are having peak discharges that they were not designed for. Peak discharges. So the thing will pond because it will back up a little bit. But when the rain stops, it will leave.
It will flow.
Yeah.
Okay.
But any area where you now have it staying for 24 hours, 48 hours, then we have urban flooding.
I didn't know, sorry.
No. Just more than one day.
Okay.
It never happens.
Well, okay, that was a long time. Okay. Now, Victor Wu says that there are natural drainage paths. Lagos is a mega city. As a mega city, must build a lot more paths. In over 30 years, when it rains, Femi and Yontuga in Surulere and the estates around are mightily flooded. No way out for the waters. Meanwhile, there's a canal behind
System
Census.
5. I can tell you that if he lives on that street, he will confirm that within 2 hours.
Now.
Yes, the
Femi
water
and
goes.
Yontuga.
Yes, now.
Okay.
I grew up in Surulere. We even have a quarters in Census area, Census Close.
Okay.
Drainage Service has, when we're building that channel, we have a quarter that was established there. Yes, they have flooding that comes. Ritalori, all those areas get it. But within 2 hours, it goes.
Okay.
Okay, Victor, please let us know what happens. But then this series on, this person didn't say where, but he said that's Manuel Miles. He says the problem with flooding in Lagos is that the drain systems are not deep enough to carry the amount of floods, of waters that are coming. He says it's local government that the drainage is not up to 2 feet.
Okay.
So when I asked the question about the kind of information that should be going out, what the people should be doing now, my neighbor, for instance, is building, and sand has covered the gutter in front of the house. So when water runs, and that street goes downwards, so when water runs from the gate into that street, it gets to that point and stays.
Now, the question is, should anybody educate such a person? You know that this drain is meant for water. Should I need to tell you that this is an impediment that needs to be removed? But even at that, we're still doing it. The government from day one, this new government has always said, please keep all drains clean of refuse. Don't dump garbage on the roads. Because when you dump them on the road, where does it end up? In the channels. So you say, it takes 2 hands to make a clap. And that clap has to be made.
Okay. Well, Victor has not answered that question, but I'm sure he will get back to us. Okay, so finally, if you're going to say a word to Lagosians and indeed Nigerians generally, what would you say to them?
Well, the rains are a natural occurrence. They will come. Flooding will have to be managed. But we'll have to play our parts. Like she said earlier, it is the duty of every resident to keep the drain in front of our tenement clean. Legal duty. Not sure any talking here. The law says that the stretch of drain in front of your house is your right to clean.
Okay.
While government cleans the secondary and the primary, which we're doing. So we want to have that clap. Yes, please.
Mr. Olalekan Shodain, the Permanent Secretary, Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, this is a time where you are very, very busy. It's time of the year where you are very busy. So we just wish you luck.
Thank you very much.
Dealing with floods all over Lagos.
Thank you very much. We were trying our best. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for staying with us. We shall be back in a moment with the home stretch.
Thank you for staying with us. It's our home stretch, but I need to read this tweet before we get into the conversation. So Victor did reply. I asked a question to Victor about the drain thing. He says that Mr. Shodende is correct, but then says we don't have to wait for 2 hours for the waters to recede. My point is that it should flow out in no time. Bola Idris says nature has natural reservoirs, small takes, etc., but sand fillings and dredging worsens flooding. Example, Alakbere or Shoki reservoirs are being sand filled, bringing 2 to 3 feet floods on the road and 2.5 hours gridlock between K2 and the Shoki bridge. That's coming from Bola Idris. Finally, you have something?
No. Well, even Houston gets flooded, but you can say it is due to blocked drainages. That's joy forever.
Yeah, even Houston, and Houston is not exactly a wetland. But okay, there's this mail we would read, I'm sure, before the end of the program today. It's from a student about the exam thing, Adetunji Mumuni. But we'll take that when we finish with this former student who is in the studio. She studied chemical engineering. And but now she's a neoclassical crossover opera singer. She made her entrance into the Nigerian music space in 2015 with the release of a folk song, Iwe Kiko.
Iwe Kiko?
Iwe Kiko, okay.
Learning.
Which earned her an award for Best Alternative Music Video in the 2016 Nigerian Music Video Awards. Again, she graduated from Illinois Institute of Technology, Chemical Engineering. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please join us to welcome Ronte.
Hello.
Hello. How you
Thanks for having me.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So, as Alera would always ask, I know she's going to ask this question, but let me ask it first.
Okay.
What is a chemical engineer doing as a classical
Can you imagine?
opera singer?
She's engineering your hearts and minds.
Wow, that's a new one.
She's still engineering.
Yeah,
That's a new one.
engineering something.
That's a new one.
Okay, all right. We shall take that, and next time we listen to you, we shall actually take that to heart and ask ourselves the question.
How much of engineering is going on here?
In my heart.
Very good. Very good. Very good. That's
So,
the aim.
so 2015, you broke into the Nigerian music scene. Before then, what were you doing?
I was working as a chemical engineer, environmental engineer, in refining and upstream as well, oil and gas.
So you just decided to up and leave that field that has mega bucks, or you made enough bucks to go sing?
I wish. I wish. It was a long decision. I mean, it was a decision that I'd been trying to make since I was 15 years old. So you can imagine. So by the time I was talking about it again at the end of 2014, I was sounding like a broken record. And my support system, my family, my mentors were just like, you know what, go and do this thing. Because you won't stop talking about it.
Okay.
So it's been there. It's been a part of my life. Music has been a part of my life.
But the chemical engineering is there as a buffer, just in case you need it, right?
I try not to think about it because I'm concerned that if I think that I have a buffer, I will not push myself to the next level.
Let's try. You are convinced that you will make this a success so that you will not need the buffer.
I have to make this a success, so I don't need a buffer.
Okay. So how has it been so far?
Oh, it's been tough. I can't lie. It's been tough, but it's been fun. You know, it's one of those
Fun
things.
is not enough. You got to be able to make a living.
Yes, I agree. Fun is not enough. And so what has happened, like I said, even though I'm engineering hearts, and I'm also looking at new ways to make an impact, make money, and just be useful in this realm of music. So it has really challenged me to use all my senses, really, to be honest. And I think for me, that's fun. You know, learning, not knowing, you know, the next step fully and just kind of jumping out by faith and just, determination and all that. It's been a fun ride. I can't lie. It's been a fun ride. And it's been very challenging.
Has it been worth it?
So far, yes. It has.
Okay.
And what ends up
And
happening?
I'm talking about worth it both financially and emotionally
Yes,
for you as a
yes.
person.
So what ends up happening, it's a trend that I'm now noticing a few years into what I'm doing, is it comes in spells, right? So there'll be a dry spell, and then I start to fret, like, oh my goodness, I might made the wrong decision. And then something will happen, and it will just be like, what do you call it? Is it a windfall, or it will just validate that you're on the right track.
Easy street.
Yeah, you're where you need to be. So why are you fretting? Just like at the tail end, where you're just like, oh, can I still? Like this COVID-19 period, and it's just like those first 2 weeks of lockdown. It's like, what? All my plans, performances, this and that, bookings, plans for this summer to go and sing in Berlin, this and that. All the knots were all shaky. But then I get a call. Yeah, it wasn't about money or anything, but it was about doing something that was going to, put a smile on people's faces, get me out of my house, for a change. I went to sing. There were 2 calls. One was to sing at an isolation center, the Onikon Stadium.
That's certainly engineering hearts.
Yes, I tell you. I mean, it was mega fulfilling, I must tell you. And then the second one was to record Amazing Grace in the style of something that Andrea Bocelli had done in Italy, like a prayer over Italy, and then do it like a prayer over Nigeria. So come on, you see those things and you're like, why am I complaining? I get to do these kinds of amazing things.
If not satisfactory for you, they're satisfactory to other people, and it brings joy to other people.
Exactly.
So let me take you back a bit. When you decided that, okay, you know what? And thank God for support system that says, go ahead and do this. You came out with that song, you were Kiko, right? But in the video, a little boy says, when I grow up, I want to be a farmer. And everybody laughs at him. Was that your story you were telling?
Yeah, I mean, so at first, to be honest, Iwekiko came about because I was desperate to find something that I could connect with and that I felt that my Nigerian audience could connect with. Because up until that point, I was mainly performing classical music on stage. And I just felt it was time to do something else. And I had promised my support system, that I wasn't going to put myself in a box and just say, okay, this is all I'm doing. I'm just doing my classical music, my first love, and I'm not going to venture out of that genre. So this was my challenge to myself. And then Kobam's Asuko, a dear friend, came up with this brilliant idea. Why not do a remake of a folk song? And by the time we started working on it, it was the right fit. It felt perfect. It fell into my voice. I mean, classical musicians, we get crazy about our voice and all kinds of things. So it was just perfect. And then by the time the song came out, it was so nostalgic. Everybody loved it. Everybody that heard it loved it. Even till today, I still get comments. So it kind of healed 2 birds, so to speak.
Okay. You didn't kill 2
No,
birds.
I didn't kill. I killed.
Okay.
But classical music in Nigeria,
Yes.
tell me about that.
Oh gosh, the way you asked that question, you've already answered the question.
No, I haven't. Because there's some people who appreciate classical music.
Yes,
And
you're
those
right.
who do are very passionate about
Yes,
it.
indeed.
But it's a small audience in
It is.
Nigeria, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah,
It's
so how are
quite
you
small.
getting by doing that kind of music?
Yeah, so for now, it's not completely self-sustaining. Classical music is not completely self-sustaining. And so it does help that I'm able to do all these other styles and function in other, other arenas of music. So I can go sing in an Afro-pop concert and I won't be kicked off the stage, But literally, but I think that it's all about exposure, It's all about educating my people, so to speak. It's all about just letting them know that this is also something, and this is something that a few people are passionate about, and more people can become more passionate about when they hear about it. But for instance, if I have a concert and I send a proposal to, say, a company. Now we're getting into the financials. They're like, sorry, I can't put my brand on this concert because how many people are going to come? How many people like classical music? So that's where it really gets very, very dicey and tricky. But over the years, I've met people that I didn't even think would love classical music say, wow, what is that thing? You know, some people come to me in pidgin, like, that thing where they sing is sweet though. I like it. I remember one guy in TFC one day, I think I opened my door as my music was playing or something like that. And he said, that thing you're playing is sweet though. I said, see? I told the person next to me, like, see, people love this stuff. We just need to get it to them. So that connection needs to happen.
Yeah, a lot of people are not actually exposed to that kind of music.
No.
So maybe if they were, they would appreciate it more, right?
Exactly. I 100% believe it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing it.
So okay. You were saying something about your engineering hearts and minds. So do you sit down to do engineering drawing on this one?
In a way, I remember like the isolation center experience, coming up with the song selection. It was hard. It was like I had to think about it deeply and see the progression of the songs and see how do you get these people that have been basically locked up in this place for
and depressed.
And depressed for no real fault of theirs. How do you just get them to come alive? So yeah, it's a lot of thinking goes into this work.
Okay, tell me this, in classical singing.
Sorry. Oh, that was funny.
In classical singing or opera singing, as the case may be, you said something about we're very particular about our voice.
We are.
Okay. So what do you do to keep your voice? Because you're not sounding like you sing. Now you're talking. I know you have singing voice and talking voice, right? Okay. So what do you do to keep your voice in that state?
If I tell you, then you have to pay me.
No, he's not about to start singing.
I'm not about to start.
I promise you.
So in general, classical singing is a very fine art and very perfection-based. You have to keep fit, keep your voice fit. You know, you have your daily exercises that you do for your voice.
How do you exercise your voice? How do you train your voice?
How do you train your voice? How do you exercise your voice? It starts with your breath. You train your breath to be able to do powerful things. So
Greek.
I warned you.
Greek.
Yeah, it's a breath. Your breath is your powerhouse. That's the fundamentals of, will I say, opera singing, or even any kind of singing, to be honest.
But it's somewhat different because you tend to hold notes longer than...
Yes.
So,
he sings.
No, I croak.
He does.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of.
Sort of.
So,
Don't say you croak now.
but if on a regular day, you wake up in the morning, do you do coffee?
No.
Do you do tea?
I could, yes.
Okay, but not coffee.
No, that doesn't affect my voice. It's just my personal preference.
Then you run?
I could run, yes. Running will help me to increase my breath capacity, yes.
And you eat raw eggs?
No, I don't do that kind of...
Okay.
We heard about that as well.
Yeah, some people do, but
raw eggs?
It's not necessary.
My brother does okra.
It's not necessary.
Raw okra. But we'll take a moment and we'll come back. We'll talk to Ranti about what's next for her. Don't go away. Interesting times with Ranti. So, Ranti, classical music's not too lucrative as the case may be, so you have to dabble here and dabble there just to keep it going. You're engineering hard every day, according by you, as Chief Zebediah will say. But in a difficult situation or terrain, or a challenging terrain like this, what's your plan?
It's hard to plan, in times like this. To be honest, and I consider myself a planner. thanks to, my background and all that. But to be honest, it's hard to plan. But we can set stretch goals and just kind of live with an open mind. So one of the things I do want to do more of, now that it's apparent that we're going to be living in the virtual world for
more than ever
before, is definitely be out there more on social media, record more. That was something to be honest, I wasn't doing enough of recordings before this pandemic. So it's shown me the need to record more and document my singing more, and then share it through the streaming websites and platforms. So that's what I'm going to be doing, some original content and some already composed content. So that's the next thing. And then
why do you say it like that? That's the next
thing. Because you just have to live with an open mind. This is the open mind season. Things could change, and a new next thing could be needed. So, yeah.
Well, COVID-19 has looks like it's come to stay, and it has changed our lives forever, it seems. So it's good that you're thinking about tweaking things here and there to cope with the situation in which we have found ourselves.
Yes. I think it's also been a wake-up call just to, stretch myself in directions that I wasn't thinking about before. So now I'm doing virtual concerts with people in other countries. It's fun, that word again.
Different.
And it's
different. Yes. So
Okay, Ranti, we're going to sign out, and we'll read this Adetunji's mail, and then we'll sign out, and then we'll let you serenade us.
Serenade, right.
Serenade the closure of the program.
Shy.
Well done. We've been speaking with Ranti, a neoclassical crossover and opera singer.
What's your full name?
Ranti Ihimoya.
Ranti Ihimoya. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Chemical engineer turned singer.
That is me.
Well done. Okay, so we'll give us a moment, and then we'll bring you back into
all right, then.
signing.
Thank you.
So Adetunji Mumuni sent in this mail after the segment we had on education.
Okay.
And I don't know whether it's a he or a she. He says, "Good morning. I'm a student, and I'm really concerned about how people that are not writing the West African Examination Council 2020 exams are making decisions without actually knowing what the students feel. It isn't right. I can boldly say that majority of Nigerian final year students don't want to write the exam during this pandemic because of health issues. Because what's the point in writing the exam, getting the coronavirus, and dying, so 6 years of a person's life is wasted all in the name of an exam? When the minister announced the suspension of WAEC, a lot of students were relieved. We want to write the exam and move on to the next stage of our life, but writing at this point is incredibly risky because if schools are to be opened and students are entering public transportation to come to school, they might contact the virus, and that. It's not just about putting hand sanitizers in schools or checking the temperatures of the child. Schools are to open and exams are to be conducted. Every single teaching and non-teaching staff, along with the students, should be tested properly before they should even enter anywhere near the school." That's coming from a student, Adetunji Mumuni.
Here.
Here.
He's got a point.
And that's our program today. I want to thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. I'm Neota Igwe.
And I am Alero Edu, wishing you all the best. And for Pete's sake, stay safe. If you don't have to go out and be in crowded areas, please don't. Your life matters.
It's only Pete, for your sake too. We'll leave you with Ranti, who serenades you and us out of the studio. Over to you.
Okay. All right. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's So hush, little baby, don't